Still pointing me to Virginia. Shoot. I'll be back on. Ace. Joe, what's going on, man? Am I back? Can you guys hear me? This thing is still acting like my VPN is on. Like, all right, I got a thumbs up from Joe. So, guys, you guys can't hear me, at least. I did the I did the same thing where I started streaming yesterday, and I was on my work VPN because I was working, and I decided to take a little break. So that's why I was having bad service before. But when I disconnect for some reason, maybe it takes a little while, but it still thinks I'm on my VPN because this is connecting to Virginia. So it still thinks I'm based out of Virginia, Washington, D.C., when I'm not. Uh, so for some reason. Hey, but the stream says, it's green. Says the health is all good to go. So should be all right. So Ace, for your question, what time is it where you're at? I'm West Coast, man. Vegas is Pacific time, so it's just like California. Um, so right now for me it is 5:35 p.m. January 13th, Saturday. This is the Saturday night Home Alone Lost in Las Vegas edition. First time in a long time I've got the house to myself. There's no babies running around. There's no old lady running around asking for stuff. Just me in my little office. That's a shame. Even when I got the house to myself, I still find myself right here in my office. This is my comfort zone, my security blanket. Being here with my setups, doing some work, man. Yes. How do you feel about job security as a self-taught developer? Is there any real job security versus having a computer science degree? Um, I feel fine with job security as a self-taught developer. Degrees really come in when you start moving up in the ranks. So if you want to make programming a career and you want to start moving up into lead and then getting into management of development teams, I feel like that's when degrees first start being looked at. You know, um, like on a serious, are we going to give this guy the job or not the job? And the determining factor is whether he has a degree or not, and what degree that is. I don't feel like you have to really stress a whole lot about that until you start getting into management. So if you want to be a career developer or a career software engineer, you know, and move up into management of software engineering teams, then yes, a degree could come into factor there. I've heard times where there were some very good developers who went up for management positions and they lost out on the position. And one of the determining factors was that, out of both qualified persons, one had a degree and one did not. So, do I believe a computer science degree will make you a better manager? I don't, personally. I believe a management degree, perhaps, will make you a better manager. And in reality, I don't think, I don't know, I haven't taken a management degree. I don't know what they really teach you. I believe that someone who, I'm sorry, you know what? I was gonna put my headphones on and see. I believe that someone who does a lot of stuff outside of school, as far as being a better manager, will be a better manager. So, for example, I've got books back there on the bookshelf from Stephen Covey and from John Maxwell, the 360-degree leader, and people that take time out to like read books like that and really study the craft of management. I believe will be better managers than people that don't, whether they have a degree or whether they don't. Being a great manager is something that you have to work at. You can't just apply for a management job, get the job, and just because you have the title, you are now a manager. No, that does not make you a manager of people. That puts you in a position of management. But if you want to be a great manager of people, that's something you have to work at. If you're serious about it, um, it takes a special person to be a great manager of people, you know, and for people to want to follow and believe in. Um, so that's my little spiel there. But that's it. As far as just being a developer, I believe in the market right now, I still don't think having a CS degree is a determining factor on job security. Whether you can do the work is the determining factor on job security. They aren't going to bring somebody in that can code their butt off. A. B. They are a great member of a team, meaning people like them and people like to be around them. And turn that person away over somebody that comes in just because they have a computer science degree. You know, that's why in-person interviews are so important, because they're really filling you out and getting a feel for you. Because there's a lot of people that can code their butt off, that's really book smart, computer sciencey, theory stuff, but they're horrible with people. The myth of the coder being the person that sits in a dark basement. I'm sitting here talking while I'm sitting in a dark room, but the myth of the coder being the guy that sits in a dark basement, drinks Red Bull, and eats pizza all day by himself, that's really a myth. The majority of the code that you're going to write is going to be code, is going to be something that is part of a team effort. So just because you're book smart and how to do a bubble sort, or whatever, computer sciencey stuff, doesn't mean that you're going to be the right developer for a particular team. If you're a horrible team member, if you don't know how to get along well with people, then a lot of places are not going to want to work with you. So, also, what do you think about studying a computer science curriculum on your own? I plan on doing that. I'm starting this week. I do like that idea, Joe. Studying a computer science degree on your own. I know there are places like, let's see, there are places like here. Khan Academy. So you can go to places like Khan Academy, which I believe is still all free. For free forever. For everyone forever. You can learn anything for free for everyone forever. So that's their thing. And you can see right here, here's science and engineering, here's computing. You go under computing, they have computer programming, computer animation, computer science, an hour of code. And then I thought they might have had computer engineering on that science and engineering. They have electrical engineering. But you go into computer science, oh, you got to go through the whole whole thing. What do you want to learn about computer science? I want to learn algorithms because I didn't go to school for that. And, I want to be able to interview at Google and Facebook, and they're going to ask me about algorithms and data structures. Here you go, Intro to Algorithms. They partner with Dartmouth College professors Tom Corman and Delvin Balcom to teach introductory computer science algorithms, including searching, sorting, recursion, graph theory. So, learn from articles, visualizations, quizzes, and coding challenges. Boom. You can start going through. What is an algorithm? Why should you care? Walking through a guessing game. Route finding, which is the classic algorithm example. Algorithms in life, there's binary search, asymptotic notation, which is big O notation. If you ever heard of big O notation, here you go. They'll teach it to you. Big O, big theta notation. Big omega notation. Selection sort, insertion sort, recursion algorithms. Towers of Hanoi, merge sort, quick sort, graph representation, breadth first search. There you go, man. You can go straight in there for free. Got that keyword, free. You can go in and learn computer science algorithms right there. If you're a driven, motivated person and you want to get the stuff that you didn't learn in college, minus the social aspects of it, there you go. Boom. You gotta love Khan Academy. Ace said it'll be back. That's cool. I'm gonna study calculus 1 and 2. Oh, big ball. Linear algebra, discrete math, data structures, algorithms, etc. Basically the whole degree curriculum, but on my own. And put projects in my portfolio to demonstrate I have all the same understanding as someone with a CS degree. Yeah. I mean, you can totally do that. You can totally do that. Like I said, I had a recruiter that wanted me to interview at Google. And, I didn't take it because, well, for multiple reasons, like I talked about. A, I didn't want to move. There's no Google facilities here in Las Vegas or even in the state of Nevada that I'm aware of. And I don't believe Google does the remote work thing either. So I wasn't going to move anywhere that there was a Google campus at. And B, I knew that they were going to go deep into, data structures and algorithms, science, CS degree, interview tactics, and I hadn't brushed up on that stuff. So, I was hesitant to take him up on the interview thing for both of those reasons. Remember on the one of the other streams, I haven't been keeping my live streams up, so I mean, you either catch it when you catch it, or you don't catch it. But I bought that book that I held up last time. I think I put it back on my shelf. Or here it is, from Gail Lockman McDowell. That was cracking the coding interview. That goes through 189 programming questions and solutions. So there's a picture of Miss McDowell right there. She was she worked at, here we go, having worked as a software engineer at Google, Microsoft, and Apple. So she's worked at all three of those big companies. At Google, she interviewed hundreds of software engineers and evaluated thousands of hiring packets as part of the hiring committee. So she has a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering and a Master's of Science in Engineering in Computer Science from the University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from the Wharton School. She now consults with tech companies to improve their hiring process and with startups to prepare them for acquisition interviews. So there you go. Boom. Great book, great resource to give you those interview questions if you want to be prepared for interviews at some of those big name places. Um, I would recommend that as a resource for doing so. So there you go. Whether you can do the work or not determines job security. Yeah, I mean that's it, man. Whether you can do the work or not, you know. If you've got some great project, I mean, having a computer science degree on your resume might, if you have no kind of presence out there, computer science degree outside of management may get someone to look at your resume for a moment longer than someone without it. If both of you come in the door and you have no type of presence, when I say presence, I mean you should really have an online presence if you are a developer. I believe that. I didn't believe that in the beginning, that it was that important, but I have since over the years, my view of that has changed and progressed, and I do believe that an online presence is of value, meaning there's a lot of different ways to do it. You can have a YouTube channel. If you don't like being on video, you can write a blog. There are people who are prolific tweeters and sharers of knowledge and information. There's a lot of things you can do. You can vlog. You can teach. You know, even if you're just learning JavaScript, teach and show each new thing that you learn, because somebody else is going to take the same road that you're taking and start learning JavaScript, and they don't know the things that you're teaching. Even if you just learned one line of jQuery that'll move a box from this side of the screen to the other side of the screen, you should do a 5-minute video on that one line of jQuery that you learned, you know, that'll move a div across the screen. You know, all of those things can be of value to someone. And it gives you a presence out there, and it shows a future employer that you are able to teach as well. You know, you have to have a pretty solid understanding of something to be able to teach it back to others, and that's an admirable quality to have. Because I'll tell you now, a lot of developers that are in their positions, that are riding high, that are cool, they are not. It's always been a frustrating thing for me that a lot of the established developers do not give back to the community in some way, shape, or form. They won't even go to meetups, you know, programming meetups, and you make your money from programming. Like, they don't attend the local community programming meetups. They don't write any blogs. They don't do any podcasts. That's another thing you can do. You can do a podcast if you don't like being on camera. You can just talk. Make your own podcast. Talk about your experiences that you're going through learning. You know, you can make them short and sweet. Developer T is a good podcast. And he does his, and I don't think any of them are more than 20 minutes long. So he'll do anywhere from 5 to 20 minutes of a podcast. Just drop a little something on them and keep it moving. And now he has, you know, probably over 100 episodes of that podcast. But most developers don't do that. No podcasts, no blogs, no tutorial videos, no nothing. So if you're new to the game and you're already doing those things, that gives you a leg up even on people that are established in the community. I can tell you now that there are tens or hundreds of developers that I know um, and I don't know any of them that I personally know that are doing any type of blogging, or I take that back. There's a couple that do blogs, but I'd say 80% of them easily, probably higher, probably like 9 out of 10, 90%. But I'll be conservative. 8 out of 10 don't have any type of online presence. There's no blog. You can't find a blog from them. You can't find a tutorial video from them, a daily vlog video about programming from them. They don't go to meetups. Uh, that's the vast majority, well over half, well over 50%. Don't do anything. So if you do something, that gives you a leg up. That's why you make friends on LinkedIn. That is correct. LinkedIn is a great tool. You know, I showed last night. Um, Stack Overflow jobs, but LinkedIn as well has a pretty good job searchability. So let's see, jobs. Boom, see jobs. You can see over the time I've been on LinkedIn, I've sent in 32 applications, saved one job. Boom. I forget how to do their thing to look for remote. But you can see this has some knowledge of my past searches. A lot of stuff is coming up front end, senior front end, San Diego. I remember putting in locations. There's one in Henderson, full stack engineer. Henderson is a suburb of, well, actually it's its own city that's to the southeast in the Las Vegas Valley. Denver front end, California, etc., etc. I don't know if you can. That was one of the things that I didn't like about. Oh, here we go. Remote Angular. I think you can only look for the name. Yeah, you can only look for the word remote, but they don't have a specific, like under location, you can't put remote, or there were no filters or anything that would allow you to choose remote. So it's not the best site if you're looking for remote work, but if you're just looking for something in your area, then yeah, definitely type that in. And you can see, because in these cases, there might be jobs that accept remote, but if they don't explicitly put remote in the title of the job, you won't be able to find it on LinkedIn. So I had to search for remote Angular in order to find these particular jobs. So there you go. Angular 2 PHP developer remote. I don't want to write PHP. Definitely. I would do, let's see, what would I do? Node Angular. I take a look at this one first. This is out of Denver. Senior software engineer. Well, it says senior software engineer and then seniority level, entry level. So I don't know if they probably just didn't fill that out right. Servant leader. Listens, empathic, persuasive, inclusive steward. Builds community, asks for feedback. Those are the attributes that they're looking for. Exhibits agile and DevOps values in self-organized team, high standard, software quality by team, modeling, They want 7 years experience, 3 years of team software development. Blah, 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 blah. I'll just skim over this stuff. Here we go. This is the section I really care about. Experience with backend frameworks like PHP, Laravel, Ruby, Rails, Python, and Django. So they want you to know some type of back-end framework, period. So just so you have the concepts, I would assume, because they all have like model view control, MVC um, methodologies. Experience in front-end JavaScript frameworks like Node. Node is not a front-end JavaScript framework. Node, Angular, React, and Ember. Experience with SQL and NoSQL databases. So SQL is like MySQL. NoSQL databases are like MongoDB document databases. Experience with AWS, EC2, RDS, and S3 buckets. Experience configuring management software like Ansible, Chef, Puppet, SaltStack. 10% travel, meaning they probably bring you out once a year or something. Salary depends on experience. So there you go. They got an easy apply. It's been 16 views. Less than 10 people have applied. There you go. Portfolio. Do your current job history play a role into it? Because I'm only 19, I don't know if a 19-year-old would be weird in an environment with guys who probably in their late 20s, 30s, and 40s, as I would imagine. I wouldn't worry about that at all, Tyler. I wouldn't worry about it at all. I don't think it'll be an issue. Nah, son. um, because you'll find a varied level of people, you know. Like I said, the most of the teams I work on have a varied level of people. You know, people in their early 20s. Haven't really worked with anybody that was like under 21. You know, but not to say there's anything wrong with anyone under 21. If you come in and you know your stuff, man, that's all that really matters. You know, that you know your stuff. Most people won't even know how old you are. You know, unless you happen to bring it up. So I wouldn't trip too much over age or anything like that. Like I said, I work with developers who are in their 50s or during their 60s, all the way down to early 20s, probably 21 or something like that, and everywhere in between. So out of the software development world definitely has its imbalances as far as diversity and stuff. But one of the imbalances that it doesn't have is for age. You know, maybe in places we talked about this in another video. In places that have colleges that are spitting out a lot of software engineers, it probably helps skew the age numbers down to where they're probably younger, a lot of younger engineers in those areas. You know, when you look at places like what is it, Berkeley, Stanford, out in Berkeley, out in Silicon Valley area, I think. So you may find a lot younger development teams out in places like that. But if you get away from those centers, then the age goes up, pretty drastically. So when I worked in Denver, there were always older developers um, there. And even here, when I go to meetups, there's usually older developers. We did have the first boot camp, software development boot camp in Las Vegas was open, the Iron Yard, but they recently went out of business. Not the one here in Vegas, but I mean, as a whole, they were a franchise. I think Vegas was the furthest one west. I think they were based on the East Coast, somewhere like Virginia or somewhere like that. Um, but the franchise itself went out of business. So the school is still there, and I think they have rebranded themselves to be a standalone, like their own thing. They're just not under the Iron Yard um, umbrella, but they're still in existence. So being that they're there when I go to some meetups, and of course they open their open space up to meetups after hours. So whenever we do meetups there, a lot of times the students from the school will attend. Um, so you'll get a younger audience there, kind of less experience there, but still good. Do you find you get more job offers or opportunities because you have an online presence? Um, I have interviewed places and they were like, I saw your Team Treehouse video, you know? Um, so, yes, people have seen me online or seen that video online from the Treehouse stuff, which kind of sparked me and was like, hey, maybe I should, have an even bigger online presence. And I should have a much bigger online presence than I do now, with a good blog and all of that stuff, really branding my name. But I don't. And you notice I didn't want to make my YouTube channel be my name because I might want to talk about stuff on here that I don't necessarily want and a future employer easily stumbling upon. You know what I'm saying? Um, so that's the deal now. Neither one of my current employers that I know of, at least, are aware of my YouTube channel, and that's just how I like it. you know. So so that's the deal there. You know, some things you have to have some degrees of separation. Other things not. Because I'm usually very transparent on here. I talk about there's not really anything that you guys ask that I won't answer. You know, so that leads to a level of transparency that I'm not always willing to put out there to an employer. I talk about everything from how much money I make um, to my future plans, and you never know how people are going to take things. When I say that I view programming as a hustle and not a career, some people may look at that if you're a future employer and be like, oh, you don't, they might be looking for people that are going to be there for 20 years. And, I'm probably not the fit for some developer that's going to be there for 20 years. 5 years? I got a 5-year plan, so probably, yeah. But 20 years, I ain't going to be there. I will look at myself as a failure in life if I'm still working at your company in 20 years, you know. So it's things like that where, I don't necessarily want to have drive future employers to my Black Knight Coding channel. This is more about me and you guys as a community. It's kind of my outlet as being a remote developer uh, and being able to give back to the community. So I might mention it in an interview that I have a YouTube channel where I give back to the community. But that's 50-50 if I even mention it. Or I might create another YouTube channel um, that is more PC, politically correct, that I drive a employer to. You know, I might do a Black Knight coding tutorials channel or something like that, where I just do small snippets and tutorials and stuff like that. And then that's something great to drive a employer to show that kind of giving back to the community. So, I do have a blog as well that I've written that I haven't contributed to in a long time, to be honest. I want to start a channel on coding, but my main problem is sharing the little knowledge I know to someone else when I'm not a professional myself. Doesn't matter, Tyler. Like I talked about before, don't be afraid to share. That's the cardinal. Everybody feels like that. Every developer. Because all you see is what you don't know. But trust me, there are people behind you that wish you were dropping breadcrumbs along your journey so that they could find those breadcrumbs and it would help them along in their journey. You already know way more than somebody who knows nothing about code, you know, who's never written their first line of code of JavaScript, or who don't even know what HTML tags are and what is the difference between each tag. What's the difference between a section tag and a div? Or, when's the right time to use a header and footer tag? And, the fact that, yes, you can use an H1 tag and use an H4 tag and the text appears smaller, but that's because the browser has a built-in user agent style sheet. And you should not rely on that to size your text, as I see a lot of beginner uh, web developers do. They say, "Oh, I need that a little bigger." Okay, change it from an H4 to an H2, and it'll make it bigger. No, that's not what an H tag is for. It's a semantic thing that indicates the importance of a title on a page. You don't rely on the fact that Chrome has written their own code to force the font size to be bigger. You know, really, you should define your own font sizes for your H1 through 6 tags. So, I think about making a YouTube playlist on creating an e-commerce site with React, Express, and Node for beginners. Something I wish I would have, which was on YouTube when I was learning. Exactly. That's exactly what you should do, Tal. Do that. Stream is down. Uh-oh. It's God here. Hey, it's God here, Joe. What are some good coding websites? You mean? I hope you mean to learn, Big Joe. Well, the first one I'm going to take you to, of course, is the one that is my claim to fame, I guess. Team Treehouse. Yay. Come on. I guess that is the main thing. So, teamtreehouse.com. I want to have their URL on here. Yeah, let me raise this up a bit so you can see there we go. Cool. Well, here you go. Teamtreehouse.com is where you want to be. They have many tracks, front-end development tracks. You can learn Swift. You can learn, iOS development. Here's WordPress, JavaScript, Java, PHP, web design, front-end, C#, iOS, PHP, object-oriented PHP, ASP.NET, Rails development, which is Ruby on Rails, Android, VR, HTML, WordPress, SQL or SQL, Swift, there's Python, React, Flask, which is a micro framework for Python, Java, Ruby, full stack JavaScript, intermediate C#, Django, which is the big boy framework for Python, game development, etc., etc., etc. And they have a lot of courses that don't fall within these tracks that you can just find within library. Boom. Tons and tons and tons and tons of courses. So you go into any one of these, you can see every course that has anything to do with HTML, tables, forms, accessibility, 3D in the browser, coding in HTML5 game. Oh, I didn't even click on that. HTML, CSS, using Jekyll. all of that SVG stuff, responsive images. Boom. So there's a great one. The other one I used, when I got my first job, they set me down and gave me a laptop and sent me to this site, codeschool.com. I can make that bigger. Codeschool.com. Looks like they got acquired by Pluralsight. Boom. So when I got hired, they set me down and told me to go to the JavaScript section, take all the Angular courses that they had, which was here. Oh, here we go. Accelerating through Angular, shaping up with Angular, staying sharp with Angular. I took all of those. And then I took, where's it at? All the JavaScript. Part 1, 2, 3. Staying sharp with JavaScript. This wasn't out when I was with it a while ago. JavaScript best practices, and then they have they had some Git stuff too. Here it is, Git, and this is how I learned the beginnings of what I knew with Git. Try Git, Git Real 2, and Mastering GitHub. I took all of these, and that was my foray into learning Git and GitHub and how to, what pushing to a repo meant and pulling down a repo and what merging was and interactive rebasing and all of that stuff I learned initially from here. So that was that. Let's look at pricing. All of them are going to be $25, $30 a month. So their monthly plan is $30 a month. A lot of times if you're a student, they'll have student discounts and stuff. You can always reach out to them. Or if you just Google, like if we Google Code School student, look, somebody already searched for it, student discount. Student discounts Code School, there you go. So put in your student ID, your .edu ID, and then it'll give you a discount on it. I don't have a .edu ID, but most of the sites are like that. They'll give you some level of discount. So outside of Code School, another one I used a lot was egghead.io. Egghead does a lot of stuff with like Angular, React. Well, this is it right here on the front page. So they don't have as much content. They don't go as wide in the stuff that they teach, but they go very deep in the JavaScripty world. So if you'll notice, the majority of this stuff revolves around JavaScript. React, JavaScript, plain JavaScript. Here's React, React Native. There's Node. There's Angular. There's Redux. So they specialize in JavaScript. It even says, learn the best JavaScript tools and framework from industry pros. So if you are specifically looking for JavaScript stuff, I would recommend Egghead. In order to pick up that stuff. So, boom. Oh dang, that's a lot. 226 courses completed? Or lessons completed. 5 courses completed. I didn't realize I had watched that many lessons. That's crazy. But as you can see, I've spent a lot of time on Egghead.io. This site has been totally redesigned, so I don't know how to click around and show you around without figuring it out. Signed in successfully, search for lessons. They used to have a much easier interface. Okay, here we go. There's all your frameworks they got on here. Wow, that's even more than what I thought. Cycle.js, Happy.js, I won't get into all of it. This is CI, continuous integration stuff. Happy.js is another framework like Express for Node. Oh, my lady's calling me. All right, y'all, hold on. Hello? I'm sorry. I'm doing a live stream. It's all good. I didn't want to ignore you. Okay. Everything cool? All right. I'll call you in just a little bit. All right. Bye. Okay. Uh, cool, cool. Native Script, Express View, Angular, React. Here's different libraries. So ArcsJS, you want to learn about observables, which I highly recommend you learn. That's one of the new, I want to say, quote unquote, newer things in the JavaScript world or programming world, period, is observables. Because while there's RxJS, there's also like Java.js and I don't know what all the other ones. I'm sure there's probably a Ruby.js and all that stuff for reactive programming and using streams of data. So I highly recommend once you get your feet under you in the JavaScript world, you need to start messing with RxJS and observables. That puts you into another echelon of developer when you start understanding those concepts of streams of data and working with streams of data and being able to turn normal events like user events into streams of data and subscribe to those streams and take action on those streams. It can be a very powerful tool. So React, Redux Node, Mobex, I don't even know what that one is, or Nux.js. Flow, I know, is a type system for React that Facebook uses, kind of like TypeScript. React Router, Just NGR Explorer. This is what I use all day, every day. It uses Redux and RxJS combined together and creates its own library for Angular uses it for state management. But you can see all this stuff in here. So different languages, CSS, Python, Sass, here's Elm, PureScript. Anything in the JavaScript world, you're gonna find it on here, man. So this is what I end up using. I don't even know how much the subscription is, but it's there. But I've been subscribed to them for years, so they've definitely gotten their money out of me. What's another great site? There are ones that I haven't personally used, like what is it? Codecademy. Codecademy. I haven't personally done a lot of work on Codecademy, but usually people will bring this site up when people ask about a place to go learn and code. But I have no knowledge on Codecademy as far as what they teach. There you go. Average U.S. salary for web developers, 60 grand. Remember, that's an average, so there's plenty of people that make less than that, plenty of people that make more than that. So I know web developers that make 30,000 a year, and I know web developers that make a little bit more than that. Start learning for free, HTML, build web APIs from scratch, test-driven development. That's good. Learn HTML, CSS, intro to JavaScript, AngularJS. Oh, they're teaching 1X, which is the old version of Angular. I hope they're teaching the new stuff too. I don't see it, though. But that's another site, Codecademy. What are other sites out there? Pluralsight. I always have pools. Oh yeah, they have tracks and stuff now too. I was about to say give the spiel that pool site goes deep, but they don't have the tracks. But they have created tracks. I believe they call them paths. Um, so they have like a web development path that you can participate in and take. Let's see, here they are, paths. I use this for one-off things that I want to learn, right? But they have these paths now where if you go to development, there you go. They have different tracks and paths for Android, Angular. But do they just have a web development? There's a JavaScript path, so you can see 9 courses, 21 hours of stuff in there. If you want to learn Node, there's 9 courses, 28 hours, 30 hours of React stuff, Angular stuff, C Sharp, CSS, 27 hours of CSS. Good Lord. 30. Oh, I'm glad they differentiate here. You'll see Angular and AngularJS. In the Angular world, if you're not familiar and you've been looking at Angular stuff, AngularJS is the old version, the first version of Angular. It's Angular version 1, 1.0 up to 1. I don't know what it's at now, 1.6, but basically 1.9. It cuts off. The new version of Angular, which has been out for the last 2 years or so, they just dropped the JS from it. So you'll just see Angular. If you just see Angular, that's the new version of Angular, which is now Angular version 5. If you see Angular JS, that's the old version, version 1, which is like way behind. There's still a lot of version 1 code out there because a lot of companies picked it up and they didn't make the investment for their developers to learn the new version of Angular. And Angular, the first version, still works. I mean, you can still build projects in Angular version 1. They just aren't adding a ton of new features into this old version of Angular. All the development is really going on here. They're doing patches and stuff over here, and they're adding features that would ease the upgradability from the old version of Angular to the new, but they aren't doing any, real big, progressive features in this old version of Angular. So it's cool that they differentiate. Anyway, full site's good there, but you can see from my homepage here that I use it to go more deep than anything. Here we go, Docker deep dive. So I wanted to get some knowledge on Docker. Here we go. I started watching that. I'm an hour and a half in Linux administrative stuff. So get working your way around the Linux system. Jenkins. I started a Jenkins course as well, and then Electron fundamentals because when I picked up this last gig, it's built off of Electron. So we run an Electron application which takes your JavaScript application and turns it into a desktop application. So we write web technologies. We write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then Electron wraps around that and creates a desktop application that runs on Windows environment. So Electron's a cool framework, a cool technology that allows you to make desktop applications out of a web application. So I needed to, be able to poke around in there and learn about that stuff. So that's what I use Pluralsight for, is like one-off courses that I want to go deep in instead of, taking a whole path or track. So I hope that gives you a good jumping off level. So let's see. Tyler put some good ones. Team Treehouse, Udemy. I forgot about Udemy. Free Code Camp. I haven't done that one. Code School. We talked about Medium. Good blog site. I'd say the best blog site out there for programming. Oh well, they're one of the best blog sites out there. Period. About everything besides programming even. In Codecademy, we talked about. Yeah. What are your favorite Udemy courses? Let's see. Udemy. That's crazy that this was saved in there. This guy's courses are some of my favorites. Tony or Anthony. Um, he does JavaScript, understanding the weird parts. This is Angular, the old Angular. Learn and understand Angular, and then learn and understand Node.js. These three are some of my favorite courses from the JavaScript world, just because he has a great style of breaking things down. You know, any words and terminology are some of the biggest um, things that trip me up. Not being familiar with the terminology and the words, and he does a style where whenever a word is mentioned that hasn't been mentioned before, he stops the whole program and he does this little thing where it's like, and he says, "Stop, break glass." What is this? And then he gives the definition of the word, and then not just the book definition, but then he goes on to explain it in layman's terms that really describes what that term means. So that's one of my favorite reasons that I like his courses. Where are my courses? My courses. All my courses. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. JavaScript. That's the Node one we talked about. I got all these courses on here, man. A lot of them I didn't even start. I just grab them whenever there's a sale. If you don't know, Udemy does these sales from time to time, quite often actually. A lot of times throughout the year, they'll do sales where courses are as low as like $10 a course. If they're $10 a course, I'll go buy 5 courses that I have on my wish list and never getting around to starting them. So I've blown so much money just purchasing courses that I've never started. You can see all these that say start course. I've never started them. And I just buy them because they're on sale, figuring one day I'll have time to go through and go through them all. I got a lot of value out of this Mongoose course. But those from Tony are the ones that I like the best. Those are the ones I got the most value out of off of Udemy. This is that Angular 1, learn and understand Angular. You see, I gave it a 5-star rating. So those are probably the ones on Udemy that I like the best. I didn't know Medium had coding stuff. Yep, they do. How long do you think it should take me to learn code and get to an employable level? It really depends on you, Joe, on how much you want to put into to learning, how much free time you have to put into learning and building projects and writing code is the biggest determination of when you'll be employable. You know, so. I'd say that. I mean, there's probably somebody that'll hire you today to do stuff that's like not coding, but still in a tech company. You might just be doing data entry or something like that. But to specifically do um, programming or get paid to write code really depends on you. Like I use the example of that of the treehouse of the YouTuber Chris Sean. His claim to fame from Treehouse. He was another one of the Treehouse guys that got his first job 3 months after starting to learn the code. And he's still in that junior developer kind of phase because I think his first job hired him, and knowing that he was not mid-level or senior level, most of the work that he did was at a junior level. I think it was just straight JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. No jQuery, maybe a little bit of jQuery, I'm not sure. But definitely no framework stuff or anything like that. So um, if you learn those 3 basics, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you can be employable. Um, as soon as you feel comfortable building some stuff on your own, you know. You start building stuff on your own. I say start putting out resumes. Start putting out resumes. You'll start going on job interviews and probably bombing them. I definitely wouldn't build yourself up to walking in that first job interview and getting the job. Uh, but you gain valuable knowledge from going on job interviews. That's why I say don't wait until you need that job to start hunting, because you need to go on job interviews and bomb a lot of them, and then over time you'll start to learn the things that you need to know. Some of the biggest helps I got were going on job interviews and totally bombing them, and walking out of that job interview like, man, I'm never going to get asked that question again and not know the answer. So it actually motivated me to be on my P's and Q's, Man, when I got flown out to San Francisco by Visa's headquarters is in Sunnyvale, which is south of San Fran in the valley. And I flew out there and I interviewed with them, and I bombed that interview. Bombed that interview. Jeez, I bombed it. But man, I walked out of there and I knew 4 or 5 things that I needed to go become the expert on, because I was never going to be asked those questions that I was asked in there and not know the answers and feel like a fool. Never. So you need to have those experiences. You need to have those experiences. You need to have some job interviews where you go in and you bomb, and start that process sooner than later, before you feel like you're ready. So there you go. Learning HTML, gonna be able to put in 12 hours learning every day. Lucky me. That's good that you got that much free time, though, for 12 hours. I would advise not doing 12 hours straight. This is from personal experience, from someone who's done that before. After a while, your brain gets saturated. When you're learning difficult concepts, it's like trying to learn math. There's no way you could study math for 12 hours a day. Maybe some crazy idiot savants could do that, but after a while, your brain will wear out. So do it in spurts. Do an hour or two here. Take like a 30-minute break or something, and then come back to it. Do an hour or two there, or something like that. Yes, I'd have my moments where I would get in the flow and I would code for hours and hours and hours and not even realize the time was passing like that. But there are other times when I was stuck and banging my head against a wall, and a lot of times you just need to walk away from it and come back to it in a reasonable amount of time, and you'll be surprised how many times the answer comes to you when you're away from the keyboard. More than a fan of Udemy, I gave Team Treehouse. I assume you mean to say I gave Team Treehouse a try, but I wasn't a fan of them giving me a pre-made project and editing like 5 lines code to change a few things here and there depending on the video. I'm more of a fan of learning from actually building a project totally from scratch. I got you. Everybody has different learning styles there, Tyler. Treehouse takes the approach more of teaching you in small bites and chunks than anything. Here's what I did. When I took the PHP course, I did not do... I did the coding challenges, in their online editor, but I wrote all of the code in my own editor when I was going through the videos. So at the end, I had I hand typed everything that they were doing in the video. So it took me forever because they write a line of code, and I go to write that line of code, and they keep going and talking, and I miss it and have to rewind and go catch it again. But I wanted my, that muscle memory of writing that PHP code, so that it became second nature to me. Then it got to the point where when they say, create the variable foo, I didn't have to look at the screen to see what the syntax was for creating a variable. I knew the syntax for creating a PHP variable, and I could just listen and follow along, type deal. So I'm kind of like that too. I like to be hands on keyboard and build the whole total thing, Um, but I still got a lot of value from Team Treehouse. That style with the hold your hand from point A to point B works really well for me. I'm a guy that needs to be told something. I need to be taught something 3 times before it clicks. I've learned that about me. That's just the way I am. Uh, doesn't mean that you're not a smart person if it takes you multiple times to learn. I did very well in school, you know, very, very well. Graduated from high school, had an academic scholarship to college, all of that stuff. Very was in the gifted program, all that stuff. They told me when I took the IQ test that I was very like book smart. You know, I had a photographic memory, is what it was. Um, when I went to school, I would sit in the front row or as close to the front as possible, and I would always listen to the teacher when she did the lesson. And I could remember, I could see it. I can close my eyes and see her doing the lesson. So when I would have a test, um, it was almost like cheating because as I read the question, I could close my eyes and see her or hear her telling me the answer to the question. So that's how I did so well in school. I test very well because if I pay attention to the lesson, I never forget it. So that has been a great asset to me, is kind of having that photographic memory. I hated doing homework. I would never do homework, have a very low homework score, but I would ace all of my tests. And that's how that's how I made it through school. Is literally, uh, I would ace all my tests and do just enough homework to keep my A or B, and that was it, man. So you got to learn your own learning style, though. Some people are kinesthetic; they need to do, they need to be hands on, doing stuff. Mechanics a lot of times are very kinesthetic. They learn from actually working on a car. You know, you can tell them how to fix something all day long and it won't sink in, but if they actually do it one time, they got it. I am very visual auditory, so I need to be taught things 3 times and then it'll click, which can be a detriment because I've been places and worked places where they expect you to get it after the first time, and I don't get it after the first time. I've had lead developers um, somewhat lose their patience with me because they would tell me something one time and I'd have to come back for the second time and for the third time. And then it clicked and I never had to ask them again. But they didn't understand that there are people out there that need more than one time, need to be shown more than one time. So, you have to be aware of your own learning style and how to maneuver in the because this field is all about learning. You never ever ever stop learning. So you gotta master learning. I tell my kids now, school ain't so much about school. It's really about teaching you how to learn and making sure you have that mastery. Because if you take any path like your daddy, you're going to always be learning. And if you don't take the time to master that through school or some other way, um, getting into a programming or any type of engineering or problem solving career uh, will not bode well for you. Those 30K developers using WordPress. That's funny, Kelvin. What up? Came in at a good time. All right. They might be learning WordPress or using PHP, programming in PHP, man. Uh, no, I know I've seen some jobs that were paying by the hour and were paying uh, between $15 and $20 an hour to program and write code. And just FYI, that's not a lot of money for a programmer. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that $15 an hour is not a lot of money, period, because I know plenty of people who make that or less that live very happy, productive lives. But if you're a developer and somebody offers you a $15 an hour position writing code, I would think twice about it, to say the least. Unless you walk into it with a plan that I'm going to be here. I'm taking this job just to put money in my pocket, but I'm not stopping my job search. And as soon as I find another job, I'm throwing up the deuces. Then I get it in that instance, but that wouldn't be what I strive to land. You know, good place to start. Oh, it jumped on. Good place to start for an entry level job, then move on to something else for higher pay. Exactly, Joe. Learning something like Angular do, you need to learn all versions of it in case any companies still use the old code. No, not necessarily, Joe. Um, that's a good question, man. I'm trying to go and think like if I was fresh out there, if I was a free agent, right? I'm looking for work, and I put on there. I think you're gonna find more companies than not that are using the newer version. You know, um, and I don't know that I would necessarily be that. That's one of the hard parts and detriments of keeping that old version, that old code around, is that you have the gift and the curse is that usually your developers that you have there are subject matter experts in that old code, because they live and breathe it every day. They have to deal with all the headaches and all of the shortcomings of that older technology, so they learn it really well, which makes it even harder for you to switch to the newer technology because now you're taking that subject matter expert and you're telling him to forget everything that he's an expert in and to start from ground zero and learn this new technology. The con is if those people leave and you need to supplement, acquire new talent, it's going to be hard for you as a company to go and find developers that are looking to jump into old technology. As you know, your value is higher the closer you are to the leading edge of technology in the programming space. Usually, at least in the web development world. I can't speak for people that write C++ and database people and all the stuff like that, but a lot of times your value will be higher if you know the newer technologies. Because usually if you know the newer technologies, the newer technologies usually come along with newer programming paradigms and better best practices as well. That was totally the case for Angular. When you made the leap from Angular JS to Angular, version 2.0 and higher, all the way up to version 5 now, so many things changed that made the programming experience better. One of the biggest changes was it's written in TypeScript. So you're not just writing regular JavaScript anymore. You're writing classes. Angular 2, now Angular 5, or just Angular, period. Angular. If I mean the old Angular, I'll say Angular JS, but Angular is written with TypeScript, and all of the what used to be controllers are now component classes. So you're forced to, if you had just been a JavaScript dev up to that point, I know JavaScript devs that it's not uncommon for them to not know object-oriented stuff because regular JavaScript was not written with classes. It wasn't written in an object-oriented way. It didn't have classic inheritance. They used prototypical inheritance, and it's totally different from any OO language. It just didn't have those concepts. So making that leap to TypeScript, to me, vastly, while it was a steep learning curve, it vastly enhanced the development experience to me. To the point to where now I don't want to write an application that doesn't use TypeScript. You know, I like having those tools, those development time tools, the static type checking, and being able to catch my errors at development time instead of compile time or runtime rather. Uh, and I prefer to write TypeScript over writing regular JavaScript. Also, all the other extra stuff that came with it, like for state management, having to learn NGRX, which is Redux and RxJS and observables. And I didn't want to learn that stuff in the beginning. It was just so much stuff at once. But I tell you what, now that I know it, I'm a 10-time better developer than it was when I was writing Angular 1 stuff, you know. And that's the paradigm that you run into when you're a company, is you aren't going to find a lot of developers that want to go to that old technology, you know. I can't imagine why you would want to go right. Unless you know that technology and you just want to stay in your pocket, you want to stay in your comfort zone, you know. Um, what might be funny is that you might get the reverse of uh, supply and demand, where similar to what happened with COBOL, right? COBOL is an old, antiquated technology that has fallen out of favor with 98% of the development community. Um, but it's so hard to find a COBOL developer now that they get paid out the yin yang because nobody wants to go write it. So the people that are willing to go write that old technology will get paid more. Um, so that can happen on the reverse side. So that might be the only reason I would see somebody going to stick with an older technology, is because they're throwing that bag at them. They're offering them a lot of paper to stay in that older technology, and maybe that's what is driving them. You know, still wouldn't drive me. I wouldn't go take a Angular 1 job now. The only slight possible chance of me taking an Angular 1 job is to be brought onto the team to upgrade from Angular 1 to Angular 2. If I was brought onto the team to be a subject matter expert in Angular 2 and to help train the team on how to write Angular 2 components, that might be the only small chance of me ever taking an Angular 1 job. Ever. So I like being in the new world. So would it be weird if you put that you know Angular on your resume but couldn't maintain that old code? Um, Not necessarily, because I think if you know Angular 2, the new Angular, um, then you can learn the old Angular, if that makes sense. All the stuff in the new Angular is way more difficult. The level of difficulty is way higher in Angular 2 stuff than the old Angular 1 stuff. So I feel like personally, having had jobs where I got paid to write both versions, my first two jobs I had were writing the old Angular stuff. Um, I feel like if you can learn the new stuff, then you can learn the old stuff too. You know? There's a lot of resources that's still out there. Like you saw, Pluralsight still had the old courses with it. Um, I don't know if the stuff on Code School has been updated to the new version of Angular or not, but I'm sure that you can still find plenty of resources out there for the old Angular. So I wouldn't sweat it too much. Hey, there you go. Kelvin just said that too. I'm thinking of turning my laptop into a Linux and still using my desktop for web development stuff until I'm comfortable with Linux. Yeah, um, that's not a bad thing. One of the guys we hired at one of my gigs is he does all his development even in Linux. Uh, it's weird. He runs a Windows box and then runs a Linux VM to develop in. because we need Windows for our application. Our application currently only runs on Windows, um, which is weird because me and the other developer don't even own a Windows machine. We both run Macs and then have a Windows VM because we both develop on Mac. And then the new developer develops on Linux, but he got a Windows box to run a Linux VM in to develop in. It's weird. So I like this whole under don't copy mindset. I don't know what you mean by that, Tyler. Whole under don't copy mindset. The weird parts is really good. It teaches really well. Yeah, yeah, he does. I like. Oh, I got you. Okay. I highly doubt anyway. Actually buys a Udemy course at full price. If we're being honest, and buying a Udemy course for $10 to $20 is too good to pass up. Maybe getting us like that. Yeah, I think so. I think they put them at the regular price, just so people will feel value when they drop the price. You know, because I saw some of these that were they were showing like 40 something bucks, 50 something bucks. It's like, whoa, I ain't paying $50 for this course. Uh, but if I had to, I would. I have a friend who codes in Java, Python, and JavaScript and works at Streamlabs. According to him, he barely even codes. He just takes calls for the support desktop, and then he remotes for them. That sounds like a different position, though, Tyler, than being a developer. Because all the development teams I've worked on, you don't even have a phone at your desk. you know, like there's no, yeah, you don't answer calls or have phones. Because for the company, the development department is usually costs them the most amount of money, right? Because the developers usually get paid very well, so they don't want developers spending their time doing anything besides writing code. you know, they don't want you taking support calls. It's much cheaper for them to hire a dedicated support person and pay them 20,000 or not 20, 30,000 a year than it is to take a guy that you're paying 100 grand a year and have him on the phone, answering support tickets. Like when you weigh that out as a company, you want the 30K a year guy being help desk support, or even the 50K a year guy. You want to pay him to do help desk tickets, and you want to pay the 100K a year guy to write code all day. That's how I get my money's worth out of you, is for you to produce a product that I can make enough money off of to cover all of y'all developer salary plus profit for the company. Been working React a bunch to get my JavaScript up to par. That and ES6, yeah, that's the way to go, man. I bought courses when I found I had gaps in my notes, things that I felt were essential, especially when it came to interview questions that may be asked. I figure it's going to be mostly JavaScript. Yeah, $15-$20 an hour to write code. I can already feel the headache. Any downsides to writing code in Linux and Ubuntu? Something like IT support to me. Yeah, it does. That does sound like IT support more so than writing code or being a software developer. Any downsides to coding in Linux or Ubuntu? I don't think there's any downsides to it. I mean, all the major editors will work in Linux and Ubuntu. A lot of people do Macs because they're so close to Unix style terminals and commands, or Linux style. So, I mean, being in Linux can be even more of a help for being comfortable on a Linux box. Especially if you get really comfortable in that command line, where you can work your way around and you're SSHing in the stuff, and Linux is real powerful for administrative tasks. So if you get really good at that stuff, you can be invaluable to a small team that doesn't have dedicated DevOps people. Maybe they have a DevOps guy, but usually there's a developer on a team that has a higher level of Linux administrative knowledge and other kind of DevOpsy stuff, like knowing their way around Jenkins at least a little bit, or some other Circle CI or something like that, Ansible, um, or knowing Docker, as a developer, uh, to be able to help the DevOps guy or help the development team set up systems and processes to help the development experience for the application. So you can be that guy, if you get very comfortable working in the Linux environment. So all of the major JetBrains. So you guys know I use IntelliJ, which is the same as WebStorm. Here's WebStorm that's just for JavaScript. I use the big boy, which is IntelliJ Ultimate, because all of these are built off of this guy. They just take this guy and strip out all the stuff that JavaScript doesn't need. So this is set up for Java ultimately. But if you strip out all the Java stuff and just throw in a web server, then you'll have WebStorm. But I just use this guy, and you can configure, get modules and stuff for it, and make it work just like any of these guys, Ruby or PyCharm or whatever. So I just pay for this. It's like $16 a month for me to use IntelliJ. But IntelliJ will work on Linux, Mac, and Windows, and that's the same for. I wish I found a place where it said that. I don't know, but all the major code editors will work for that. So if you do, what's a popular one? VS Code, which is Virtual Studio Code, very popular editor in the JavaScript and Angular world. So see, it's since that my OS is a Mac, so it says download for Mac. But here's also a Linux installer and a Windows installer as well. So most of your major editors are going to work in all three environments. Sublime Text is a very popular editor as well. Pretty sure. There you go. Install for Linux. It's right there on the Google page, so you can run Sublime. Trying to get to the page so you can see it. Tyler says VS Code is my favorite. Yeah, VS Code is what I use. I love it. Yeah, I mean they came on the scene and kind of took over, man. Sublime Text used to be the de facto text editor if you're just going to do text editing stuff. It was the first. I think they were the first ones to do this thing over here on the side where you can see an overview of your code stuff. A lot of other editors have copied that now, where you can do that stuff and the different colorings and all of that stuff. But it works for Linux as well. Atom is an editor from GitHub. GitHub created their own editor. It says download for Mac. I'm pretty sure other platforms. There you go. Oh, this takes you straight into this deal. There's Mac. There's Windows. Is there a Linux? Oh, I don't see a Linux. Well, there's a tar file. You can probably build it on Linux. In any sense. But I like Atom too. You can configure it. A hackable text editor. You can go in and mess with it and configure it to work with like anything. Change all the themes, the colors, and all of that stuff. So they take pride in you being able to hack it and make it do anything. Oh, here we go. You can use on OS X, Windows, or Linux. So between those, between the JetBrains stuff, Sublime, VS Code, and Atom, those are probably the major editors that you'll run into people using out there that I can think of. If they're Java people, they may use Eclipse, but I'm talking about general editors, not like I think Eclipse is specific for Java. Uh, I think those are the big ones. So there you go. I wouldn't get too caught up in editors and stuff. IDEs, yeah. So is a difference between IDEs and editors, and I didn't know what that difference was in the beginning when I first started. Um, Text editor, you'll see them even point out, this is a text editor, not an IDE. Text editor is just a place that allows you to write text, pretty much. They've been configured to really work well with code. But in theory, I guess you could write any type of text in there you wanted to. If you wanted to write your essay paper in there, you could, I reckon, in plain text. But that's not really what it was built for. It was really um, built for writing code, and they allow you to do plugins and stuff to be able to recognize and syntax highlight different languages. You know, so you can see the syntax highlighting here, how the method is in one color, the if statement's in one color, and the return is the same, is this pink. And, it allows you to look at it and be able to differentiate quickly the different parts of a method or a class or whatever it may be, all your method names are in blue. You can scan the file very quickly and be able to tell what's going on. So there you go. There you go. Boom. Oh, the difference though is an IDE will have extra stuff. IDE stands for Integrated um, Development Environment. So IDEs will add things like, let me see if I got something up that I can show. Okay, here's something that I will pull this up onto the screen so you guys can see. Boom. There we go. All right. So this is IntelliJ, right? I don't know what this is. I was copying and pasting something. This is for Poolsite. What was this? Learning. Oh, this was going deep in some RxJS stuff. Okay, cool. But anyway, this is IntelliJ. So IDE, right? Looks just like a text editor, but if you'll notice, there's extra stuff in here. Here's the terminal. So if I needed to do things in the terminal, I don't have to leave where I'm working at to go to. I don't even have it up there. Where's it at? Okay. Normally, you would have something like this. So normally you'd have your terminal open, right? This is iTerm 2. I like it because you can do things like this and split multiple sessions on one screen. So here I've got my app server running, deploying my app. I run my test down here. I do any type of Git stuff that I need to do up here as well. But I don't have to have a separate deal open when I'm here. I got my terminal right here. So if I needed to, I don't think this has Git on it. No, this isn't a repo. But if I needed to do anything in here, I could do it right here without having to leave the environment, right? I've got a TypeScript compiler here that'll compile my TypeScript right here within the editor. I don't have to run a separate terminal command to watch my files and to compile them. Over here is database stuff, so if I needed to connect with the database, I could do that. There's also, here we go, RESTful web services, right? So if I'm working with the API from the front end and I needed to hit that I needed to hit an API URI, right? I could plug that right into here and hit it and see what the response is. So all of these things, IDEs just give you all this stuff built in. Um, the drawback, I used to say, well, if they give you all this stuff built in, why wouldn't everybody just use an IDE? Um, the drawback, especially back in the day, was because it had all these extra things attached to it, that they were a little bit slower than the text editors. So that was every Sublime Text user's argument. Well, yeah, Sublime Text is just so fast, man. It's so fast. It's so fast. I just type stuff and it instantly appears and highlights and all this stuff. Because back in the day, you could type stuff in here and, whatever. You type stuff in here and it would take a while for the text highlighting to show up or whatever it may be. But that's gotten a lot better nowadays, so almost to the point to where it's instantaneous, because this in the background is indexing all the code and doing static analysis on it and all of that stuff. So the argument really isn't there for speed anymore, unless you're running on a really underpowered machine. If you're running on a really underpowered machine, then yeah, I probably would do like a lightweight text editor instead of a full-on IDE. But all I use is IntelliJ and the full-blown IDE stuff. And I take advantage of, having a built-in terminal and being able to hit my back end and see what the results, what the response is coming back in. And, any database connections I need to do, I can do them right here. And all of that stuff is just right here at my fingertips, There's a lot of stuff you can do in here. Built-in refactoring stuff. So if you write something in a non-smart way, like I wonder if it'll pick this up. So if I did something like if I'm trying to think of a good example. Like if I did if x equals 2, return true, else return, let me make this bigger so you guys can see it. Well, else return, I can't spell, else return false. I don't know if it'll do it here. Or even where I'm at. Oh, I'm inside this whole function. Yeah. Oh, here we go. See? It says if statement can be simplified. So it does static analysis and says, hey, you can write this in a simpler way. This isn't a best practice. You can write that differently. And it even gives you an example. If foo return true, else return false can be simplified to simply return foo. So it's saying instead of doing all of this, if 2 equals x, return true, else return false, right? It says you can take all that way away and just do return that's the same. If I can spell return, that's the same as just writing return x plus 2. So little things like that, doing the static analysis on it and stuff. Yeah, VS Code can do that too. So IDEs give you a few built-in things, but I feel like you can do all of that with VS Code extension or Atom package. Yeah, you can usually tack on to the text editors and in essence create an IDE, you know, same deal. The IDEs just come with it built in, is all it is. So, borderline, switch. What are your thoughts on Vim? Vim is cool if you want to take the time to learn it. You know, you need to know at least beginner level Vim because you are going to interact with it whenever you use Git. So, Git, unless you're using um, a GUI for Git, which while it can be, while it makes things a lot easier, using a GUI for Git, I recommend that you learn how to do Git on the command line. And then if you want to use a GUI down the road to make things easier, uh, go for it. But in the beginning, you need to learn Git on the command line. There will be times where you need to use Git where you will not be able to use a GUI to work with Git. And if you only know how to do things on the command line, you will be screwed. Ask me how I know. So learning Vim, which is the default editor on every Linux machine, and or not default, but I think it is the default editor in the console, and is also available on every Mac as well. Is only an asset to you. If you know nothing more than how to enter a commit message and save that commit message and edit, you at least need to know those very basics. A lot of people get to that command, that prompt in there, and they don't know how to switch modes and none of that stuff. So taking a very basic Vim course will definitely help you do it. I had the Git desktop application, but I uninstalled it. I always use the command line. Yeah, I don't even use integrated Git GUI and VS Code. I always use the term. Yeah, Git desktop is trash. Yeah, man. I used to use. I've used the Git desktop before, but I had more experience with SourceTree, which is an Atlassian product. Atlassian does Bitbucket. If you ever heard of Bitbucket. And then they have an enterprise Git hosting system called Git Stash. So they do all of that, but I got burned by getting really comfortable doing things in the GUI and forgetting how to do them on the command line. So now I do everything on the command line. I don't even have a Git GUI installed on this machine or the other machine that I work on. It's just all terminal, all command line stuff. I have a rebasing Git flow instead of a merging Git flow. So I do Git rebase stuff on the command line, all day, every day. Ace, you was gone for a while, man. Yeah, it's a long stream, only because I'm home alone. The lady's gone. There ain't no kids here. And she still interrupted my stream because she called me. I'm gonna make fun of her. I'm gonna tell her, you always know how to interrupt my stream. Joe says I use Linux. Should I learn Mac command line, even though I don't have a Mac? No, Mac command line it's not Linux, but basically it's Linux. So if you know Linux command line, you're good to go. Those commands will transfer over to Mac. For the most part, I'll say 90% of the commands will transfer over to Mac. You know what I'm saying? You start getting deep into file system stuff, some of the commands are a little different on Mac, or some commands don't even exist on Mac, but 90% of them are. So 90% of the stuff, pretty much all the stuff you do on a daily basis, just regular development stuff, will transfer over seamlessly to Mac. That's not true on Windows though. Unless you're using the Git. I haven't done Bash shell within Windows, which is like a Linux kernel inside of the Windows environment. So I don't know anything about that or how well it works or anything like that. But I did listen to a podcast where they basically embedded Linux inside of Windows and created a translation layer that would allow you to type Linux commands into a terminal in a Windows environment, and it would translate those commands into the equivalent Windows commands and still operate like you were on a Linux machine. So to you, you were writing Linux console commands, but in the background, it was executing PowerShell Windows commands and returning you the proper thing that you asked for in Linux. So that is that's a mind blow for me. But if that works the way it's supposed to work, man, that's awesome. And then you only need to learn Linux, and you can get around all three of the major operating systems on the command line if you know how to write Linux commands. So there you go. Big Joe said most employers use Macs. Most employers will give you an option, actually, if you want to be honest. Most of the places I went to would they asked me what I developed on, and if I would have said a Windows box, they probably would have got me a Windows box. A lot of employers would probably prefer that you develop in Mac, only because the vast majority of developers are developing in Mac, and so there's a good amount of knowledge base with issues that you might run into on a Mac machine, and there's usually not that level of knowledge on a Windows box. So what you have to understand is that is that thunder? Dang, that was loud. What you have to understand is if you are a Windows guy or gal, and you like to develop on Windows, what you have to understand is that when you run into Windows problems and you've chosen a Windows box for your company, you're probably going to be it. There probably isn't going to be anyone at the company, developer-wise, that can help you fix that problem or issue that is Windows specific. You know what I'm saying? And that's usually the case. There's usually always one Windows guy. There's like 99 Macs and one Windows guy, and usually one kooky Linux guy too. And the Linux guy knows everything, because he's been working in Linux, and he's flying around in the terminal doing all kinds of stuff that you didn't even know could be done. And then the Windows guy is doing his thing, and he runs into problems, and nobody can help him because it's I don't know, man. I haven't booted up a Windows machine in 10 years, which is true for me. I literally haven't booted up an independent Windows machine. I run Windows in a VM now, but I do 2% of things in Windows. I literally go straight to the command line and execute a Java jar file, and that's all I do in Windows. Most people just can't help you. So nothing wrong with liking Windows, but you need to be able to hang your own, whatever I'm trying to say. If you want to be a Windows guy or gal. So need to get on Bitbucket. Bitbucket's cool. I mean, if you get on GitHub, if you know GitHub, Bitbucket's the same thing, man. It just hosts Git repositories. So there's not a huge difference between Bitbucket and GitHub. I think Bitbucket had a thing where you had you could do unlimited private repos, but I think GitHub changed their thing. I don't know if they give you unlimited, but they give you. I think GitHub had a limit where you only got 5 or 7 or something weird private repos that you could have for free, and then after that you had to pay, which I pay now for GitHub. I think it's $7 a month or something like that. I pay for unlimited private repos on GitHub, so all of my personal projects are in private repos. And Bitbucket, I think, gave you unlimited private repos, and I think that was their kind of one up on GitHub and how they got a lot of people to use Bitbucket was those unlimited free private repos. So Tyler uses both Mac and Windows. Took me a while and asked a lot of questions about how I do this and that. Uh, but I got it. I remember having a hard time trying to uninstall a program on a Mac. Um, it's usually easy uninstall a program. Now, if you got something that didn't come like through the Mac store and stuff, then yeah, you might have to go in and do some under the hood stuff. The good thing about Macs is you know, 3 words: they just work. Macs just work. When it's a time crunch and you got to get work done, and you don't want to have to worry about booting up your machine and having to wait 10 or 15 minutes for Windows Update to run, or having a issue with the device driver not working right, or audio driver configuration and all that stuff. If you don't want to have to deal with that, that's what Macs are for. Um, I was a hardcore PC guy, building my own computers and everything until I went to school for audio production. And that was the first time I saw Macs everywhere. They use Macs for everything. And one of the instructors, um, explained why. He said, when you go into a professional recording studio, there will be a Mac running the board. Reason being is that people are paying top dollar to be in these places, recording. Sometimes hundreds of dollars an hour. And they expect things to work. They're not paying to come in and you say, oh, I need to find a new driver for audio driver for this thing or that thing, or this isn't working and it's updating and all of this. He said, no, they're not paying for that. So you'll find a Mac under the console almost every time in a professional audio studio because it just works. And they literally, some of these machines have been running for years, continuously. There's some old G5, the old silver case Mac Pros, some of those things are still running. Old OSs running Pro Tools from way back in the day, and they run continuously, and nobody touches them because that's their bread and butter, and it just works, The downside of a Mac is that if you are one who likes to open the hood and tinker around with stuff and change a lot of configuration files and just generally hack around on your machine, Macs make that very difficult. Apple makes that very difficult to do and to learn about how to do because they like their walled gardens and to control their hardware and software combinations so that they keep that reputation of just working. So they don't allow you to, poke around under the hood, so to say. But it wore me down, and I went from liking to be able to configure everything, and I couldn't believe they built machines where you can't even change the RAM or change the hard drive on, because I was used to hand picking every component in my machine. But they won, man. They won me over because they just work. Every time I turn it on, this darn thing boots up and just works. So it is what it is. One time with my lady, she's been gone for a week. Oh, hey, more power to you, Ace. I ain't got no problems with that, brother. Question time. Here's one. What interview? Hey, that's another thing. When kids come, I know you was talking about having babies. She want babies. You better be ready for that fun time to be cut down a lot, brother. A lot. Especially if you get more than one kid. Because you want to talk about knowing how to ruin at just the right time. Kids have a radar for it, boy. They know how to come knocking on the door or come around the corner at just the right time to ruin the moment, man. Jeez. Anyway, here's one. What interview question should I expect to hear as a junior web dev? Oh man, let me look into Linux VM for my Windows. Okay. Questions that I've had as a junior web dev. When I went on my first interview, I kind of had it. First interview for the job I got. It was, man, I wish I could remember those questions. I wish I had recorded it because I did a phone interview where I remember pacing back and forth in that little condo bedroom, shaking because I was so nervous. And I wish I would have recorded that interview on speakerphone. I don't remember what he was asking. I remember some stuff I drew a blank on, and thinking back on it, it was something that anybody should know in JavaScript. I mean, if you call yourself a JavaScript developer, and it was stuff that I flat out just wasn't familiar with or didn't know. But it was so basic now that it's hard for me to even think of. Uh, I know one interview I did on the phone early on when ES6 was a new thing. I was asked about ES6 specific stuff, and I hadn't brushed on ES6 stuff. So I was asked, what some of the new things in ES6 was rather, and I'm like, yeah, they got the new, there's the new let keyword and const keyword, and there's array functions. I had heard the buzzwords, but then he asked me, um, okay, tell me what the difference between let and var is. And you heard crickets, man. Because I didn't know what the benefit of using let over var was, or any of that, or what the benefits of arrow functions were. I just thought it looked different from this kind of function. It looked different from this. That's all I could tell you. I couldn't tell you, what the benefit was or anything like that. So I would know all your ES6 stuff. Any developer now that I were to interview, because this was more than 2 years ago, or 2 or 3 years ago now. Um, so at this point, you should know all your ES6 stuff, man. If you're going for a JavaScript job, you got to know your ES6 stuff. If you're still writing, um, if you're still writing these kind of functions everywhere, and you don't know arrow functions and how to use them and what the benefit of them is, that's definitely a detriment at this point. Yes, there are jobs out there that don't use ES6, and there's still developers that are making a living that don't write any ES6 code, but that's becoming fewer and farther between. So I would definitely recommend knowing your ES6. Well, I guess I should call it its proper name, ES 2015. Um, what the differences are, and what the syntax is, and be able to articulate those differences um, between let and var. And everybody, well, I feel like everybody knows what const keyword is for. Um, arrow functions, classes. Yeah, that's it. There was a point where you weren't expected to know class stuff, like fundamental OO stuff, because people knew that people coming from a strictly front-end development path had never had to deal with classes, you know, classical classes. But now you'll probably be expected to know class stuff, like class inheritance and what all that stuff means. To extend a class, or to have a class implement an interface, or what is an interface. That was some of the stuff he was asking me on that first. I I remember that question when I said interface. He asked me, uh, "What is an interface?" And I don't know if I gave a good answer for that. I remember the keyword. I remember interface, and I stuck it with the word blueprint. And I remember saying it's a blueprint. It's like a blueprint. And I was stammering and stuttering, trying to articulate myself, which I still struggle with nowadays, is articulating programming concepts. I understand them here, but it's hard for me to articulate them um, sometimes. But back then, I didn't even have it up here to try to articulate. So I was stammering and stuttering through it, which is why I say I'm surprised that they hired me for that job, but they did, and I'm forever indebted to them because that was the kickstart of my career. Um, so yeah, even back then, for my first, and we were just writing old Angular stuff, which didn't even use classes and TypeScript and all that stuff. And he was still asking me about OO stuff. So you might want to be prepared for object-oriented class questions and stuff like that, Because I did get that on my very first job that had nothing to do with classes and stuff. I was writing straight ES5, old school JavaScript. Kelvin says, Macs are in studios. I can vouch for that. Yes, sir. They're in there. I've noticed that every studio session you watch on YouTube, they're always on a Mac. I'm telling you, they will always be on a Mac, man, because they just work. I'm telling you. Bro, I got three kids. That fun time is unlimited due to their neediness. I'm telling you, me too. There's 3 kids in this house. And man, they know how to, me and the old lady get close to each other. And boom, here come one around the corner. Mama! Like, get out of here. I just closed the door and played music. That's funny. Oh, man. They'll be at the door knocking, kicking, crying. Yeah, that's it, man. That don't stop them. That don't stop them. Even though they don't want nothing. They don't. Oh, man. That's fine, Kelvin. Wait. It's easy to say that now, man. But it gets in your head and it messes with you. I'm not worried about writing code. I'm like, hey, create this. I'm like, no problem. But the terms may kill me. It's always terminology that trips me up 2 ways. Like I said, articulating the terminology stuff and the concepts. It's just something you have to work on, If you want to get better at it, you really got to work on it. So if I were at a place where, I was out of work again, that's one of the things I would work on a lot because I know that's one of my weak spots is articulating. And if you know a bunch of stuff but you can't articulate it, you can still appear to not know a lot of stuff to people. And I never want to come off as not being as intelligent as I may or may not be. Yeah, scope. Yeah, you're going to definitely be asked scope stuff. Scope stuff is what tripped me up in the interview for Visa. I'll say that. That was one of the things that tripped me up because he hand wrote some code, some tricky stuff where he was, declaring a variable outside of a function and then wrote a function that returned a function that took that variable and made some changes to it. And then he would ask at different points, what is the variable? And scope came into play, and I was turned all around. I was spinning in a circle in my head. You could tell he was one that really understood the inner workings of JavaScript, and this was one of the reasons why I say I really like that course, JavaScript, the weird parts or whatever, because he goes into all that scope stuff, And had I watched that course and really studied it over and over, I would have aced that Visa interview. Because I didn't think that they were going to go as low level as, getting into scope and stuff like that. I thought they were going to be asking me Angular specific questions, to make sure I knew that because they were looking for an Angular developer. That's what I flew up there. That's what they flew me out there for. And he went down to the basics in JavaScript and caught me out there before I was comfortable um, with all of that stuff. Scope and prototypical inheritance was another. I mean, the basics of JavaScript. How does pro, uh, prototypical inheritance work in JavaScript? And then he would write examples on the board and quiz me at different points. You know, what's happening here, what's happening there, etc. He was grilling me, boy, and I was sweating bullets. And they did this thing where I stayed in the room and they rotated different people coming in and out of the room. And some of them were like nice and sweet people. And then this one guy came in and he would just, he didn't have a smile on his face. He was very straight to the point. It was like, hey, how you doing? Hi. And he went straight to the board. And he was all about business. And I think his interview was the one that killed my chances there. Um, a lot, you know. And I was asked to whiteboard there, pseudocode out some DOM manipulation stuff, you know. It was something about, you know, pseudo coding out or whiteboarding out the code to, I don't know, do some type of DOM manipulation. I remember having to write like document.get element by ID and put an ID on the HTML element, and you're doing all this on a whiteboard, which is, for some reason, it's like 5 times as hard as doing it in an editor, you know, or more nerve-wracking. I remember doing all that stuff there and totally bombing that thing. Scope ES6 hoisting, callback functions, how to write the syntax seems huge. Yeah, all that stuff Kelvin mentioned are definitely things for the replay. He mentioned scope, ES6, hoisting, callback functions, how to write the syntax. All that stuff is going to be huge. As long as you can do the job, why would they care if you know about the past system? That just seems stupid. What do you mean there, Ace? When you say past system, do you mean like old Angular 1 stuff? Is that part of that conversation we were having earlier? So, or do you mean like the basic JavaScript stuff? There's actually a lot of benefit to knowing the under the hood JavaScript stuff. I didn't think so in the beginning when I was a new developer. I thought like that, like, man, as long as I can write this Angular stuff, what do I need to know about this, this other stuff? But you will run into bugs caused by not understanding these concepts. So there are bugs that you'll run into that are strictly have to do with scope or hoisting. That if you don't understand them, you can waste valuable development hours chasing and tracking them down when it was as simple as something being out of scope or not understanding how hoisting works. So there is a great benefit to knowing that low level stuff and understanding prototypical inheritance and being able to add functionality to objects using its prototype. All my energy has been in the last couple of weeks. My JavaScript notes are like 50 pages long and counting. You're going hard, Kelvin. Ramsey Jordan, what's going on? I don't know if you've been in the chat before, but I appreciate you stopping through. Do you think I should use tutorials to help with my portfolio, or should I use my own HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, even though it isn't great? That's a great question, Ramsey. I like to see a lot of your own stuff, right? Because even though it's not pretty and great, it still came, 100% from you. Now, that being said, you I would say that you could use tutorial stuff, right? But do not just stop where the tutorial stops. You need to continue building upon that base tutorial project and extend it, greatly extend it if you can, and be able to articulate and talk about the things that you did to extend it and to make it better than what it is. Because most tutorial projects are going to stop at a base core level, right? And there'll be a lot of stuff missing, a lot of functionalities that can be added to it to make it better, et cetera, et cetera. So if you want to use a tutorial project as a jump off or starting off point, I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you can say, you know, this started off as a tutorial, but it stopped here, and I saw an opportunity to add this functionality and that functionality and make it do this and make it do that, you know, and so articulate your way through all of the changings and how you enhance that project. So I think you can do a mixture of both if you do it like that. But I definitely wouldn't just do straight tutorial stuff and represent it as your own, you know, without extending it or expanding it or doing something to make it your own. I hope that helps. According to the internet, I see questions like, here is an array of numbers. I want you to write a function that compares every number and returns how many numbers will have a sum of 6, for example. Yeah, you can. There's a bunch of stuff. If you Google JavaScript interview questions, JavaScript interview questions. There you go. Boom. 36 essential JavaScript questions from total. There's 10 interview questions, 21 interview questions. You should go through all of these and make sure you understand them all. I'll tell you this much. When I had my first job and I was part of the hiring process, I would literally Google something like JavaScript interview questions, and I would go through and search for questions that I thought would be good candidates, and I would directly ask these questions to candidates. So, if you were a candidate and you had gone through and Googled JavaScript interview questions and you knew how to answer each one of these questions, you would ace every question that I asked you. Because I was junior at the time, remember? Like, I didn't know a lot of JavaScript myself. So I didn't come up with my own, JavaScript, quizzes to ask you. I would look up stuff, and so I would definitely, recommend that. Discuss possible ways to write a function is integer x that determines if x is an integer. Well, oh, this even has answers? Does it have answers? Look at that, it's got answers. Boom. With different ways to do it. With that in mind, the simplest and cleanest pre-ECMAScript 6 solution. Boom, boom. Bunch of different. That's cool. That's even better. They didn't have answers when I used to look, So here you go. You got questions and answers. I would definitely go through all of these and make sure you understand them at the very least, And there you go. There's a big jump off to help you get started. 10 questions every JavaScript developer should know. This is from 3 years ago. I remember this guy. I've read a lot of his blogs. He's very opinionated. Can you name 2 programming paradigms important for JavaScript developers? Boom. Multi-paradigm language it is. You can do functional programming and object-oriented programming. Yep. Prototypical inheritance and functional programming is good to hear. And red flags is if you have no clue what a paradigm is. No mention of prototypical or functional programming. What is functional programming? See, that's great stuff there. I've read this before, like years ago. And this is great stuff. What is functional programming? Good to hear. Pure functions just keywords, you know. Pure functions, avoiding side effects. Uh, I remember reading this and not even understanding what a side effect was or why you would want to avoid one. Oh, I was so green. Um, Simple function, composition, all these things make sense now. Examples of functional languages: Lisp, ML, Haskell, Erlang, Clojure. We talked about some of these. Was it yesterday or the day before? Talked about Elm. We talked about Clojure. There's F sharp. We talked about F sharp, etc. All functional programming languages. You know, I forgot about Haskell and Erlang and Lisp. ML I'm not familiar with, or OCaml I'm not familiar with, but definitely familiar with those other ones. Mentions of features that support functional programming, like first class functions, which basically means you can pass a function to a function like any other variable. You can pass them around. Higher order functions, functions as arguments, values, red flags. You don't mention pure functions or avoiding side effects. So see, I would definitely read through this. Difference between classical inheritance and prototypical inheritance. Gotta know that, because that's one of the great differentiators between JavaScript and a lot of other programming languages. Pros and cons of functional programming versus object-oriented. That's a great question. When is classical inheritance an appropriate choice? When is prototypical inheritance an appropriate choice? What does favor composition over class inheritance mean? See, that's great stuff. This guy, fun function. I don't know if I went through great YouTubers, programming YouTubers, but he's one, fun function, that I definitely recommend. Two-way data binding versus one-way data flow, and how are they different? This is a great one, because this is coming into play a lot nowadays. One of the big differences between Angular 1 and Angular 2, or Angular 1, the old Angular and new Angular, is Angular 1 came on and they were touting, oh, we got this great two-way data binding model. It's going to change everything. And then Angular 2 came along and they copied what React was doing, and they went more to a one-way data flow model, where you have a smart component at the top, and it grabs information, passes it down to its children. The children dispatch actions, which will change the store, which will change the data going into the parent direct component and filter that back down. So it's one-way data for one circle. It's not going down and back up. So pros and cons of monolithic versus microscience architectures. Yeah, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. YouTube. So I want to point out this guy too. Fun function. There we go. So this channel I definitely recommend subscribing to. He's got 127,000 subscribers. But he goes through and breaks down. Hey, he's making some long stuff now. GraphQL basics. Here we go. He has this new JavaScript stuff. So arrow functions in JavaScript. Advanced, reduce, functional programming in JavaScript. He's got this great playlist for functional programming in JavaScript. So you got to, I highly recommend checking out his stuff. And it's fun function. I forget where he's at. He's overseas somewhere. But I like his stuff a lot. What's his playlist? Here we go. Functional programming in JavaScript. Map, reduce, closures, higher order functions. A lot of that stuff that you saw on promises, recursion, what currying is, functors. Let's get into high level functional programming stuff. Streams, monads, So great stuff, and he breaks them down and shows great examples and stuff. So go check out Fun Fun Function. I think everybody here should be subscribed to him. Here you go, Barlett Const. Why, what, why, and how. Boy, if I had read this uh, or watched this video before I had that interview, man, I would have been able to answer that question. And you know what? That interview that I filled that question on was for a remote position. And after I couldn't answer those questions, I didn't hear anything back from them. You know, they were like, "We'll get back to you," and they never got back to me. And that was one. That was one of the days when I learned um, that junior dad it's hard for a junior dad to get a remote position. It's easy time as soon as they hit me with the word quiz of terms, I'm gonna just walk out. Thoughts on Cloud9, IDE, and online editors. I'm not familiar with Cloud9, Joe. So let's see. I've heard of it before, but I have never used it. Cloud9. How about if I spell that right? Cloud9 IDE. Is this it? Is it an AWS thing? Yes it is. So you're just coding in the browser, eh? That's cool. I don't know how well it works. If it works well, hey, go for it. It floats your boat. Here's a video on it from 2017. I would check that out. Scopes and closures. Oh, well, head spinning. Whoa. Oh. Learn Code Academy on YouTube. Learn.code Academy on YouTube explains scope really well. That's good. I know a scope works, but it's hard to explain. Yeah, you want to be able to be good at articulating it. Prototypical inheritance concept, that bar and comps, all that. I've been deep diving in that joint. Yep. Can you walk us through your full day from start to sleep? Kevin on Plan got to spend an hour or two a day working on being able to explain the terms. I can honestly say that learning scope and hoisting, I'm a better developer even though I don't. And, it's really good to get into. Yep. One thing that kind of gets me still is binding the this keyword for a function and the this keyword and arrow functions. That's about the only thing that gets me. That's good. That's a good benefit. One of the good benefits for arrow functions is that it takes away a lot of the ambiguities around the this keyword inside your function, or it helps you handle context. Call, apply, and bind. Bind is confusing, but I got to hit it a little harder this week. Tyler says same. That's good because that's all good stuff that can be asked on an interview. You know, how call, apply, and bind differ from each other. How are they used? And what's the benefit of using one over the other? I use the tutorial for the design and then customize it however. I'm finding I'm not the best designer. That's most developers, Kelvin, are not, well, not most. Well, yeah, most developers that I know at least are not very good at design. You know, that's why designers, that's still a dedicated field or job position, is that, you know, it takes a special skill set and special way the brain is wired to be creative like that. By definition, if you're a good programmer, you have a very logically thinking brain, you know. And logically thinking brains usually don't think creatively as well. Um, but that starts getting above my pay grade and going into the details of that. Uh, but yeah, that's why designers usually design and programmers program. And most designers that are really great at designing aren't the best coders. And most of the best coders that I know aren't very good at designing because they require two different parts of the brain um, to be good at. That's why front end frameworks like um, or CSS frameworks rather like Bootstrap and Angular or Material Design and Bootstrap and all of those CSS frameworks came to be because they wanted to create a framework that would allow a non-creative developer to be able to build a web application and not have it look like crap. So they said we're going to build this library of pre-made reusable buttons and drop downs and sliders and date pickers and all of that stuff that look pretty and allow a non-creative developer to leverage those and use them in their application. So that's how all of those things came to be. Uh, so when you hear people talking about Bootstrap and material design and stuff, they're just using somebody else's CSS to make their application pretty because either A, they know how to do it but don't want to take the time to write all that CSS, or B, they're not very skilled at, you know, making things pretty. And that is where I fall into. I'm not great at CSS at all. Well, I take that back. I actually weirdly enjoy CSS and the quirks of it. Um, but really, the thing is, I haven't had a lot of time to work in CSS. I get paid mostly to write JavaScript, you know, more so than CSS. We have a dedicated guy on our team at one of the gigs, and his whole job is to go behind the developers and clean up and make it pretty. You know, developers go and write it up and wire everything up and make it work, functionality, and he goes behind and cleans up and makes it pretty. So that's his whole gig. Now, he's pretty good at writing code as well because he writes code, uh, but his strong suit is in CSS and that type of development. Using React and haven't used Vine yet. Yeah, I mean you can write a lot of code, especially if you're using a framework, um, and not have to use Vine. But it would come into play in more advanced um, scenarios where you would have to go into the bag and pull it out using bind and apply and call. But most of the time, if you're using a framework, all of that stuff is being done for you under the hood. Now, if you go into React's core code and Angular's core code, you'll see bind and apply and call used all throughout there. Um, but they use it under the hood so that you don't have to worry about it during development time. My nose is doing this thing again, y'all. It's itching. Only when I'm on the screen, you know. I don't know what it is. Um, you can, even though it's not pretty and great, but it's shot fire. It's not a shot fire, man. You know, I will start React next month. Thanks for the answer. I just subbed a few days ago, and your first videos were exactly where I am in my life right now. Yeah, I know what you mean, man. Ramsey, you work at a hotel, Ramsey. I always use Adobe XD when making a website. It'll give you a clear idea on what you want and help you in the long run when you get the styling part. That's cool, man. I'm familiar with Adobe XD. I know a lot of web designers switch from using Photoshop and Illustrator to using Adobe XD because it was built for web design, is my understanding behind it. I'm not an expert in it. And they really enjoyed it, you know. I know the early versions were missing a few things that they were used to having, but I'm pretty sure by now, that was years ago. So I'm pretty sure by now that it's caught up and it's probably a really awesome tool. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, Adobe XD. User experience design software developed and published by Adobe. Supports vector design, wireframing, and creating simple interactive click-through prototypes. Uh, I wish it said when it first came out, but it doesn't. Design, prototype, experience. So it allows you to go through and do a layout. Whoa. Yeah, that looks cool. Yeah, so a great tool to be able to do wireframes and lay them out, you know. Just $9.99 a month, so $10 a month, you can get it. It's cool. You understand objects, functions, methods, so you can better understand props and state. What site is that? What site? What's the site you just posted? Should we memorize it? Oh, just Google for that site, man. Just Google JavaScript JavaScript interview questions, and you'll see it. It's one of the top 3 or 4 on there. You know. Well, you want to get an understanding, Ace, of those concepts. You know, because if you have an understanding, then you'll be able to re-articulate it. If you just memorize it, you might not understand what's behind it. Memorizing is cool if you know the buzzwords, at least the keywords, but you'll get tripped up if they ask the second question. You know, it's easy. It's easy to regurgitate something that you memorize, but where they really know if you know it is they ask the second question, if that makes sense. So if I ask you what is prototypical inheritance, and you can throw out some buzzwords to me, and then I ask the second question about prototypical inheritance, going deeper, and then that'll trip you up if you don't have an understanding of it. Higher order functions, basically. That's why I say Medium is the best. Yeah. What are you reading? The post on Medium every time. Yeah, Medium's great. Function favorite YouTuber for everything JavaScript. Yep. Traversy Media will always be my favorite for everything else. Yep. Cool. Yeah, function is that dude. Him and Line. That code having JavaScript is weird and awesome. It's a great tool. Does exactly what his name is. You want to go to sleep. Appreciate that, Ace. I remember watching his promises async await videos. It can be very clear understanding. I think it's from Sweden. Yeah, I think it's from Sweden too. Function, Tyler. He said I'm bougie because I got YouTube Red. Man, I only got the YouTube Red because I hate ads, man. I hate ads. So I got the YouTube Red. So I never got I skip all the advertisements and stuff because I consume more YouTube than the average person. You know, I say that this machine. like I said, 14 hours a day, easy. And I'll take breaks and I usually watch YouTube. Or I'll have YouTube going on in the background or something like that. And, I just got tired of, if I watch a bunch of short videos, like if I watch a 3-minute video, which I play it at 2x, so it's only a minute and a half for me. And I listen to an ad at the beginning of that, and then a minute and a half, the new one starts, and I listen to the same ad, and then that one's over, and I listen to the same ad. It's like after a while, I was like, nah, I'll pay $10 a month to not have to listen to that ad again. So that's why I got YouTube Red. I don't even watch any of the, they have exclusive content for YouTube Red members. I don't even watch any of those shows or whatever because I did in the beginning, and they were all like cheesy and goofy and not funny, but trying to be funny. So I don't get that. Like it was prank stuff. Like I don't like prank video. I know that's a huge genre on YouTube is prank videos, but I don't get it. I don't like prank stuff. Uh, I don't like to prank people. I don't like to be pranked. I don't like watching other people get pranked. Like it just doesn't do it for me. But when they first came out, there was a lot of like exclusive prank videos, and I'm like, I can't stand that. Like that's goofy. Um, like where I come from, my boy, we don't prank each other. You know what I'm saying? Like pranking where I'm from can get you hurt. You know what I'm saying? People don't pranking. You don't prank each other unless you're ready to fight. You know. Now I've been in other environments around other, how do I say, cultures, people from other cultures, which if you can read between the lines, where pranking is a funny thing, and you know, it's not looked at the same way as the culture where I come from, where if you play with me the wrong way, it can get real serious real quick. So that's why pranking stuff don't click with me, you know what I'm saying? But to other people, hey, that's cool, man. When I was in the Air Force and around other people of different culture, I saw pranks being done and stuff that would have got you killed where I'm from. They would do to each other, and I'm like, man, don't play with me like that. Don't play with me like that. Uh, oh, all right, Ace. I'll catch you later, man. I didn't know it was so late there. I'm gonna wrap it up too. This is like one of the longest streams. You hate ads? Are you not living in 2018? People have ad block. Yeah, man. I know that. I know there's ad block out there, but it's like it's my way of still giving back to the creator. You know what I'm saying? Because they get a little bit of something from YouTube Red members that watch their videos. You know what I'm saying? If I use ad block, then they don't get anything um, from me watching their videos. So call it me having a small bit of a conscience. I mean, I kind of be a hypocrite if I'm on YouTube creating content while at the same time stopping other content creators from getting paid for creating their content. So I decided to pay the $10 a month so that they still get, a couple pennies when I watch their video. You know what I'm saying? This man said YouTube Red because the ads when everybody literally has ad block. Yeah, like I explained, man. That's why I do YouTube Red instead of ad block. Uh, Bootstrap is good if you want to build a project quick and have no real design chops. Which is me too. I need projects in my folder, and Bootstrap got me there. Yep, React uses Bootstrap too. Yep, the prank stuff is stupid. The challenges are stupid. You don't hold no punch, yo. Prank will get you messed up from where I'm from. Yeah, that's what I'm saying too, man. But I think that's more from our culture there, Kelvin. Like you don't play with people uh, from our culture like that. We don't do the prank thing. You know what I'm saying? Uh, but hey, if pranking is some people thing, you know, to each his own. Just don't come my way with that stuff. I'm not a fan of all that stuff too much. I'm not in the vlogs, pranks, social experiments, and all that stuff. He's saying if you're in the hood, You read between the lines there, Tyler. You don't prank. You're absolutely right. If you come from the hood, you don't prank nobody. You know what I'm saying? Shoot, start off with a prank and end up dead. Uh, you know what you're saying. I like the majority of the pranks. I feel like the majority are fake anyway. It's, it's what TV is. I guess I can't really blame you. Game late. Are you keeping the stream up on the channel? Yeah, Burkay, I might keep the stream up. I don't think there was anything too crazy in the stream, and I didn't show anything. I didn't show anything too crazy either, man. I think that's gonna be it for me, y'all. It's been the timer says 2 hours and 40 minutes. Just crazy. I knew I was gonna do a long one tonight though, just because I didn't have any other responsibilities. But I'm probably gonna take my little machines and go get on the couch in here, man, and kick that recliner back, and turn on the TV and catch me a game that's been recorded. Watch them Warriors play, or something like that, man. Yeah, I enjoyed the night too, Tyler. I mean, there was some good stuff going on in the chat. You know what I'm saying, Kelvin? Appreciate you dropping some answers in there to people's questions as far as the interview stuff, man. That's the thing, Ramsey. There is no normal to my live streams. Well, I'll tell you this: if it's during the weekday, it's usually going to be somewhere around 3 o'clock. Between 2 and 3 o'clock for a start time. And that's Pacific time. I'm on West Coast. So that's Pacific time. So you have to roll that to whatever time zone you're in. If you're East Coast, what is 3 o'clock? 3 p.m. would be 6 p.m. And then, roll it back from there all the way to 3 p.m. West Coast time. If it's on the weekends, it's kind of whenever. If you really want to know, join the Slack channel. It should be in the yeah, I'm gonna see if I can copy it and paste it in here. So that should be linked to the Slack channel. No. And then I'll post in there a lot of times if I'm gonna go live. So I'll post in the general channel that I'm gonna go live, and you'll be able to see it there. Wish I had a laptop. So my laptop when I broke in. You see, I wish I could sit on the sofa, lay back, and code. Yeah, man. I do too, Tyler. But to be honest, with the setup that I have, it's really inconvenient for me to sit on the couch and code because I use 3 monitors. I have code up, I have the site up over here, and I have the dev tools up on the laptop. So I use all 3 monitors when I'm developing. It makes everything easy. I don't have to switch between screens and stuff. So even though I would like to, go in there and kick back and code on the couch, it really slows down my productivity when I don't have my multiple monitors set up, because I can make a change and instantly see it over there and see if there's any errors in the dev tools down here, and everything stays where it's at. So I like to sit on the couch, and tonight, because it's Saturday, I don't feel the rush of having to be super productive, so I'm going to do it tonight because I'm tired. But that's it. Appreciate y'all stopping by, man, and spending a little time with me. I might even go live tomorrow too. Yeah, I'll probably go live tomorrow just because I'll be bored and have nothing else to do. Or I might shoot some regular videos tomorrow. I haven't shot a regular video in a long time, and I need to do that. So that's it. I'll post this up. I'll leave it up at least for a couple days. Tyler or whoever came in late. Burkay, I think, asked if I could leave it up. So I'll leave it up for a couple days at least if you want to watch it on the replay before I take it down or something like that. But that's it. Yeah, future devs here, son. That's it. That's what the channel's about. Getting everybody productive, writing code, making money, changing your life and your lifestyle for you and your family. So until tomorrow, peace.